with. And we proposed then to Museum Sheffield that we would use a whole tree to kind of recreate a kind of our take on the gallery, on the Ruskin Gallery at Millennium Galleries. So the first thing that we did was go to Beaulieu and cut down the tree that we found a couple of months before that. And this is the wood that I'm painting on now. So this is just one tiny little panel of a whole tree that we're using to create this artwork for the Millennium Gallery exhibition in January. The tree that we chose was probably about 120 years old. So it was around when Ruskin was at the end of his life. But yeah, it's kind of the connecting piece between Victorian England and where we're now, which I find quite interesting as well. That we are using something that was around when Ruskin was still alive. It's not just the personal experience. It's sort of a kind of an interpretation of what was different between Ruskin's time and our time, and there is almost an overload of information that you can work with and work from. So what I'm creating is kind of different kind of narratives that have arisen from my visits to the archive, the Ruskin archive. Ruskin was very interested in inequality, which is an issue that is still prevalent today, and we get fed stories and images all the time. At the end, when you see the bombardment of that, you're going to find your own connections through that. So, images of that I've literally used from the Ruskin archive, the insects and the drawings of the flowers that I found in these books, they are coming back into these paintings and somehow connecting back to the images that we are constantly sort of bombarded with from our media will allow people to create their own kind of narratives, if you like. I stick a lot of stuff on the wall, and then I begin to see the connection. For example, the fact that Ruskin was so interested in, that Botticelli painting, the La Primavera, springtime. But then also seeing the springtime that we've just had, the summer that we've just had, and then the connection between something that's brought in here and that's coming out that. So I see all those visual connections, but I don't really quite know how they connect in words. They connect somehow. There are certain themes that I've been interested in. For example, the difference between the 1850s, when Ruskin was active and creative, and my time. I think Ruskin was interested in the individual expression, but then he had also a very kind of strong take on what that expression should be like in a way. He seemed very generous about that nothing needed to be perfect. It didn't need to be perfect, but it was just still something about it that had to be right in some way. I am actually very interested in the world. I'm just bringing it back in here, and then it becomes this very solitary, slow, very focused activity. And I can't talk about it that comfortably, because at some point it's got to go out there in the world again, and then it will do its thing. Whereas this is in the middle of the whole process. I need it, but I'm kind of not ready for it. You know what I mean? What would Ruskin think? I think he was quite generous in terms of giving artists time, and I think he was obviously, a very good writer, and he also drew. He looked he looked, and I think he would probably have a connection there with what I'm trying to do, is that kind of intent looking. But I'm not looking directly at nature, I'm looking at the kind of the information that's left behind from those people that looked at nature, or looked directly